hope you will enjoy this lesson as much as I have. We are beginning chapter 2 of the book of Ruth. This is a bright, hopeful narrative entitled Happenings Unfold. This is lesson 8 of 16 in the Bible study, the book of Ruth, the Lord's Steadfast Love Redeems. Chapter 1 has been pretty gloomy about Naomi's family, about the poverty and the hopelessness and the death. The only happy spot in it was the conversion of Ruth as she vowed to follow the living and true God. But great work from the Lord came out of great sorrow. Verse 1 of chapter 2 of Ruth identifies Boaz. I will read it now. Now Naomi had a relative of her husband, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. In verse 3, the author gently builds suspense and hope by telling us again that Boaz was from the clan of Elimelech, Naomi's dead husband. Boaz was a devoted follower of the Lord. His name means, "In him is strength." In the Hebrew language, in verse 1, Boaz is identified as, quote, "a man mighty in wealth." It is thought that he was a prominent clan leader and a worthy warrior in the town of Bethlehem. And since he labeled Ruth as "my daughter," it is thought that he was a good deal older than Ruth when they met. Isaiah 64 explains how God's interlocking providences worked with Boaz and Ruth as they met. Here is Isaiah 64. From of old, no one has heard or perceived by the ear. No eye has seen a God beside you, who acts for those who wait for him. Who acts for those who wait for him. Naomi and Ruth actively waited for God to work in their lives. A faithful believer prays and reads God's word and believes while God works out all things according to his good will. Now I will read the first 16 verses of Ruth chapter 2. Now Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him in whose sight I shall find favor." And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she set out and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and he said to the reapers, "The Lord be with you." And they answered, "The Lord bless you." Then Boaz said to his young man who was in charge of the reapers, "Whose young woman is that?" And the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered, "She is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab." She said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers." So she came, and she has continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest. Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Now listen, my daughter. Do not go to glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn. And then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, Why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? But Boaz answered her, All that you have done for your mother-in-law, since the death of your husband, has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land, and came to a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. And then she said, I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servant, though I am not one of your own servants. And at mealtime Boaz said to her, Come here and eat some bread, and dip your morsel in the wine. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed her roasted grain, and she ate until she was satisfied, and she had some left over. And when she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying, Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And also pull some out from the bundles for her, and leave it for her to glean, and do not rebuke her. Verse 3 tells us about Ruth beginning to glean in the field belonging to Boaz. The Hebrew language here says Ruth chanced. Her chance chanced to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz. The author playfully points out the intriguing coincidence that Ruth went to Boaz's field. She did not know whose field it was. She had probably never talked to Boaz before. And maybe she had never even seen him walking around Bethlehem conducting his business. But this was not a case of random luck, or good karma, or serendipity. God, in his providential mercy, was caring for his daughters, Naomi and Ruth. That is why I titled the lesson, Happenings Unfold. One author recognizes God's kind work this way. Quote, behind the apparent chances of the ordinariness of day-to-day encounters, God is expressing his providential rule and care, his covenanted grace. Unquote. Here is a partial list of ways that God guided Ruth to bless her. Here are evidences of how her chance chanced. Maybe you want to search chapter 2 for these instances of God's care for his daughters. It would be a way of praising God for his steadfast love, his hesed for his own people. First, Naomi and Ruth happened to hear that the Lord had given food to his children in Bethlehem, and so they decided to move back to Bethlehem, and it was at the beginning of the spring harvests. God provided food for them, even if it was the gleaning that the poor could do at the edges of the field. 2. Ruth happened to choose this time to appeal to Naomi to let her go and find food, and Naomi happened to give her permission to go. 3. Ruth happened to choose a field belonging to Boaz when she went to glean. 4. The field manager happened to allow Ruth to glean in this field on this day. Scripture's modern-day equivalent states, lo and behold. Lo and behold, Boaz happened to come to the field that day. He happened to be there when Ruth was there. He happened to notice Ruth and to ask his foreman about her. 6. Boaz happened to talk to Ruth directly instead of giving her a message through his foreman. That might have been a formal message. And Boaz talked to Ruth in a kind, personal way. 7. Boaz happened to offer kind hospitality to Ruth, inviting her to have access to water, lunch, and his protection. 8. He happened to take time to interact with her in a deeply godly manner, referring to her conversion and comforting her about the death of her husband. He also commiserated with her upon her choice to leave her country and her family and her culture. 9. Boaz happened to take responsibility to provide food for her and for Naomi in the foreseeable future. 10. Boaz happened to give her honored status among his workers as a valuable human being and not as a dirty Moabite foreigner. In our next lesson, Lesson 9, we will think again about the Lord's hesed, his steadfast love for his people, and how it worked out in the lives of Naomi and Ruth and Boaz. If you subscribe to this channel, you can get all of the lessons that we have so far been able to put on this channel. Thank you for watching.